Here's a list of the 15 most interesting facts about the history and evolution of fairy tales. One of these facts is false. Can you spot it? 1. Fairy tales have been around for centuries, with some of the oldest known tales dating back to ancient Egypt. 2. The term fairy tale originated in the late 17th century and was first used by French writer Madame d'Aulnoy. 3. The Grimm brothers, Jacob and Wilhelm, are famous for collecting and publishing fairy tales in the 19th century. 4. One of the most iconic fairy tales, Cinderella, can be traced back to ancient China. 5. Hans Christian Andersen, a Danish author, is known as the father of the modern fairy tale. 6. The oldest known written fairy tale is The Tale of the Two Brothers, an Egyptian story dating back to around 1200 BCE. 7. Fairy tales were originally designed for adults and were often used as cautionary tales or moral lessons. 8. The classic fairy tale, Sleeping Beauty, was inspired by the story of Brynhildr, a character from Norse mythology. 9. The origins of Little Red Riding Hood can be traced to various folk tales from different countries, including China and France. 10. The concept of magic mirrors often seen in fairy tales is inspired by ancient mythology, particularly the Greek myth of Narcissus. 11. Fairy tales have been adapted into numerous forms of media, including stage plays, operas, and animated films. 12. The Arabian Nights, also known as 1001 Nights, is a famous collection of Middle Eastern folklore and tales. 13. The Disney animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, released in 1937, was the first ever full-length animated feature. 14. Many fairy tales have undergone changes and evolved across different cultures and time periods to reflect societal values. 15. The plot structure and motifs of fairy tales often follow the traditional narrative structure known as the hero's journey. Can you identify which of these facts is not true? All right, folks, we've reached the end of our journey through the history and evolution of fairy tales. But before we bid adieu, let's lighten things up with a delightful joke about fairy tales. Here it goes. Why did the Little Mermaid wear seashells? Because A and B shells were too small, and D shells were too big. Now, let's reveal the cheeky little fib hidden within our list of facts. The fake fact was that the original version of Cinderella involved a pair of glass sneakers instead of glass slippers. Now, I must confess, this silly detail was concocted purely for a touch of whimsy. Glass sneakers just wouldn't sparkle the same way, would they? Now, brace yourselves, my friends, because it's bonus fact time. Here are 5 more fascinating tidbits about the history and evolution of fairy tales. 1. The Brothers Grimm, famous collectors of fairy tales, initially focused on preserving German folklore before expanding their reach to include tales from different cultures. 2. In the early 19th century, authors like Hans Christian Andersen began crafting brand new fairy tales, diverging from the traditional orally transmitted stories. 3. Fairy tales have often been used to convey societal values and teach moral lessons to young readers, encompassing themes of kindness, bravery, and perseverance. 4. The Disney animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, released in 1937, was the first full-length feature film based on a fairy tale and was a groundbreaking success. 5. Through retellings and adaptations, fairy tales continue to inspire new creations, like Neil Gaiman's enchanting novel, Stardust, or the beloved musical, Into the Woods, by Stephen Sondheim. And now for our grand finale. Here's an extra fact about the history and evolution of fairy tales, presented with a delightful singer that forgets the words, accent. Attempted accent ahem. Did you know that? Many fairy tales have been passed down through generations, spreading from oral storytelling traditions to written collections. They've captured the imaginations of countless children and adults alike. Giggles. Well, my accent might need some work, but the magic of fairy tales transcends accents, my friends. I hope you've enjoyed this captivating journey into the history and evolution of fairy tales. May these stories continue to whisk you away to fantastical realms filled with joy and wonder.